Grigson here with another video testing against tanks. Obviously I can't test the Liberator to the full extent in which it would be useful, being the belly guns and all that, but I can at the very least test some of these frontal guns against the tank or something comparable to what it might be facing or intended to face. So first off, starting against the rear of the Vanguard, keep it on point, that's almost destroyed entirely in a single magazine that fires very fast. So, well, first of all, see if I can get out of this jam here, and I'm probably just going to have to pull another one. But as you can see, there's hardly any health left on this thing. Now, that was all in the rear, which, I mean, it's not so much you'll always be hitting from that, but top armor is not so much better. Let's go ahead and pull another one here. Okay, so a little bit more range on it. Going for the top armor. It's going to be dead in the second round, sure, but right. So let's just go ahead and find another tank here while that one's respawning. Probably not one that's smoking already. We'll try another problem. Okay, hard to see how much damage you got on him, but well, 2 magazines and it's done. And those are some very fast-loading magazines. So let me go ahead and try a bit of a range on Ascended. Nice big target. A little bit of damage on it already, so let's go ahead and see. Wow. So that's Asunder as well, pretty much full to empty. I'm gonna try hitting that Vanny in the back here again. Yeah, that's like 80% damage in a single magazine. That is just kind of nuts. Now, the big thing is the fact that obviously you're in this big old thing, and it's easy to spot, and people try to shoot down, but when you have air superiority, I mean, there's not a whole lot that they can do, and you can survive a lot of lock-ons. And flak as well, it just kind of tickles. You can just get behind somewhere. Good pilots will always figure, okay, where am I going to go to if I need to go and retreat somewhere? You'd find a rock like this, so when they start shooting at you, just scoot right under here, bam, I'm completely out of their line of sight. I can stop, repair, come back up a few moments later. If I'm sure they're going to be on my ass, I can go and, fly a bit lower for a bit here until I get around to the mission area again. But then when I'm done, it's just right back up and start hitting them. Now on that note, how does this thing do against other Liberators? This one's at half. Not much better than the tanks. Okay, so let's go ahead and compare this to some of the other Liberator guns. Maybe the Liberator nose guns are just really good. And they added that new one recently that actually has a rotatable turret. It just faces whichever direction you're looking at. And the spur. Yeah, that'd be the one. Let's go ahead and check this out. Now, I understand this is probably supposed to be more of anti-personnel, but let's just give it a shot here and see what it does. Not only is it slower and doing less damage, but it even seems to reload slower. So fire slower, enters that mag slower, reload slower. It's got a big mag though. Let's try on personnel. It's not terrible, but you won't really have time to float around like this. Not to mention the pilot's got to be mostly concentrated on maneuvering. It's an interesting, kind of foray into the idea of a controlled nose gun, but come on now. Almost entire magazine to a harasser. That's really not too impressive. And with what we saw, I mean, that's another thing is that the tank buster has a bit of a spread, which means it's fairly decent against infantry because you don't have to be dead on. So let's go ahead and try the last one here, which is, I believe, the default gun. Which really looks to be just a basic vector. It's the little 50, double 50 gun here, or 20mm. Of course, no nose aim this time, straight ahead. Let's see. Yeah, let's shoot the tank. Chipping away at it. But in the time it takes me to fire all this and reload, I would have at least had another tank buster loaded and then finishing him off. So it's pretty obvious here the tank buster comes out ahead in pretty much every single gun. I mean, any belly gun you get, pretty much, aside from maybe the Dalton, that's debatable, but just about any belly gun you get is probably going to be good for infantry in at least some capacity. So let's see if we can get here. Let's see. That's AP, high explosive, AP. Well, that's 1600 damage. This one is 12. Doesn't mention the rate of fire. Let's go ahead and get this shot. So, this is the anti-armor weapon for the Lightning. Let's go ahead and take a pop shot at it, see what it does. Apparently somebody parked a Galaxy on. 2 shots that seem to do a decent little bit of damage, but not a whole lot. A decent fire rate to make up for it. Well, let's come around and see if we can find one of those tanks intact. Wander on over here. Okay, so we got ourselves Prowler. Let's see how that takes it. Not incredibly fast, but probably good for plinking at range. 3 shots, pretty quick. That is 1600 damage a round, not including any sort of AoE if there is any. But still, you have to reload between those rounds, and of course you got to be dead on when aiming them. So let's go ahead and try probably the meanest combination I can think of, Vanguard with an anti-tank turret. Let's see here. Heavily armored targets, that'd be the one. Massive tank with an utterly pointless smoke break. Okay. Well, there's your target. Let's go ahead and just see what kind of damage it does. Not impressive. The fire rate's quite similar, actually. I didn't check what the damage number on this was, but check that in a moment here. Well, yeah, maybe it's... I mean, anything's good hitting it in the rear where there's very little armor, but let's go ahead and take a look at the damage on this thing while we're scooting around in it. 2,075. That rate of fire kind of kills it a bit. Not much else to shoot at here, so we'll wait for that tank to come back then. But for most of these, we're looking at probably a second or two time to kill, and that's, you know, in ideal conditions, hitting it from the rear, hitting it every time. With all these, you're going to have a pause. Matter of fact, yeah, this looks to be pretty similar to the Decimator Annihilator. Except, of course, you have quite a bit more velocity and no drop. And that is just pretty nuts. Okay, so let's go ahead and try the last thing I really have to look at here, and that would be the Reaver. Does the Reaver have good anti-ground capabilities? I'm not sure if any of these are particularly better against tanks or not as good against tanks. But I'll say the Vortex is probably going to be our best bet. We're adding in more additional damage. And then the Breaker rocket pods, which are just anti-ground target rocket spam. So let's go ahead and find the Vanny and start spamming. relatively slow, at least compared to the tank buster.